Social Justice Paladin, episode 27, Politics, part 4, To Infinity and Beyond. Now, while I've always historically voted Republican, it seems that this strategy will continue to be a losing battle for the foreseeable future. But I just can't bring myself to vote Democrat either, that is, unless they resurrect JFK. I know what I said previously about, quote, voting third party in a two-party system is throwing away your vote, end quote. But morally speaking, voting in a one-party system when the uniparty is systemically amoral is throwing my vote away anyway. One potential opposing position floating around these days is called Christian nationalism. In my opinion, it's great in theory, but most likely will be horrible in practice. Remember, as a Christian, quote, my citizenship is in heaven, Philippians 3:20. Now, while I'm firmly an American, I'm looking to God and not man for making any lasting changes. As a result, I've decided that my voting record needs to more closely correspond not to the crumbs that the world is willing to brush off the table, but rather what, or who, best represents my personal values. If they lose, I maybe threw away my vote, but at least I can do so with a clear conscience. One other position I'm considering, rather than the meager choices given to me by the system and its controlled opposition, comes from Doug Wilson, a long-lost cousin perhaps, who is an articulate thinker and has coined the term theocratic libertarianism, and it works like this. Number one, the authority for our law must come from outside the world, i.e. objective morality, see episode 2. And in order for this to happen, it must be explicitly grounded in the will of the one true God and not an idol. Number two, limited government is a theocratic necessity. Number three, God reveals his will to us in various ways, which means that we must acknowledge him in all of those various ways. There are many courts, but only one judge. Number four, application of Old Testament law must therefore be made conscientiously and obediently, which is not the same thing as making the application woodenly. Number five, separation of church and state and separation of Christian morality and state are two entirely distinct issues, the former being a Christian ideal and the latter a demonic ideal. Number six, the track record of Christianity in the public square is not one of unbroken success, but it is also nothing to be ashamed of. Number seven, Protestant political theory requires a doctrine of history, and this in turn is best informed by an optimistic eschatology. Too long didn't read. Morality in the public square is important.
To envision a state that shows no preference between Baptists and Presbyterians is a relatively easy exercise and would be noble if executed rightly. But to envision a state that pretends to show no preference between Baptists and sociopaths or between Presbyterians and twerking drag queens is not to display an admirable neutrality. This only happens when the state has decided to side with the kinky tribe plus, and it is quite a game with them to see how long it will be before Christians catch on. Believe it or not, some Christians still haven't caught on.
See point 5 above. I've said it before, freedom of religion is not the same as freedom from religion. Also, the Bill of Rights clearly states that, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting its free exercise. Now that being said, there has already been, de facto, a state religion already established. That state-sponsored religion, which almost defies definition, I will hereafter name as Woke-ism. In Woke-ism, there are some things that you absolutely must agree with and some things that you must disagree with. Where this causes the most trouble is when worldviews clash. For example, state and locally sponsored, quote, pride parades when the Bible is very clear on God's stance on immorality. But wokeism has grown much broader than just LGBTQIA+. It now includes things like climate change, drug culture, reproductive rights, vaccine mandates, globalism, and a host of other niche interests, all squabbling to be part of the Club of Rome. One of many problems in the American political system is that both sides of the aisle have signed on to this wokeism. Diversity, equity, inclusion have become the ruler, both as a standard of measure and as a dictator. Now you could make a valid argument that, quote, you're just bitter because you're a cisgender white male Protestant evangelical Bible thumper. But I'm not bitter at all. and I am also allowed my equal and opposite and diverse opinion. But this is a hill that I will die on. As the culture drifts more left of center and insists I move with it, there will likely be more fiery clashes until my opinion and opinions similar to mine are totally silenced. George R. Martin of Game of Thrones fame once said, quote, "When you tear out a man's tongue, you're not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say." Now, I doubt it will ever come to that point. But in the meantime, I refuse to censor myself or put up with being censored by woke ideology. I guess we'll see you on Rumble.